he carried on. He said, what do you read? And I talked about the fact that I was reading English literature, therefore I tend to be rather dull and read, novels and poems and plays and the things that I'm supposed to read. He said, oh no, if you read English literature, you have to read history. Who are your favourite historians? And I sort of burbled about Macaulay and Froude and, sort of Elton and a few others that I'd heard of and occasionally had read. And he said, what about Mencken? I said, I've never Mencked. What do I say here? He said, H.L. Mencken, read H.L. Mencken. He will change your life. He said, I won't be satisfied until you write to me and tell me that you've read H.L. Mencken. So I went to Heffer's, the bookshop in Cambridge, and bought a collected Mencken and read essays by him. And it's true, he is Americans, if you go to Washington, what do you see? You see a city that self-consciously tries to be like Rome. Its architecture is Roman. And Mencken he's in the tradition of Livy and Tacitus, isn't he? I mean, that's his style. There's a grand imperial nature to him that no Briton would ever dare achieve, but it's a civilized and fascinating. I don't know what he'd make of current America, but I'll just pinch the loaf, as it were, on Alistair Cooke by telling you quite a good story. At least I think it's a reasonable story. He's just one of those men, Alistair Cooke. I was very pleased to know him. A good example of how he's one of those men is he told a story about how, after founding the... Actually, God, I will carry on now. Anecdotage. When he founded the Mummers, the drama club, he very grandly sort of auditioned people, and he said, I remember there was some student from Jesus College, and he came and he read a piece, and I said, and what are you reading? He said, architecture. And I said, well, you carry on reading architecture. I'm sure you'll make a very fine architect. He said, architect. He said, and every time I bump into James Mason, he reminds me of that story. But he said how that summer he went on a walking tour of Germany. He went to the, in the way that students did in those days. They'd take a pile of books and they'd wrap them up in a sort of leather strap and put them on their back, and then they'd just sort of hike around. Rather like Robert Donat in Goodbye, Mr. Chips, if you remember that section of the film. And they went into this beer garden, and they were sitting drinking beer, and it was a nice summer's day in Bavaria or whatever. And an ambulance arrived, and then about 3 ambulances arrived, and these people got out and they pulled out stretchers, and then chairs were being arranged in the beer garden. I thought, what the hell's going on here? It's very odd. All these chairs being like, it's going to be a concert. Maybe they're an Oompa band. That'll be rather nice. But about 5 ambulances eventually had turned up. It's very strange. And then people arrived, and all the chairs were filled. And then suddenly there was a flurry, and an open-top Mercedes arrived with a few people on it, and this man marched down the middle, brushing against Alistair Cooke as he went. And he said, I can still remember him brushing against me, and I think, ridiculous man. And the man got up and stood on a box and went, 10 Minuten nach Mitternacht, 10 minutes to midnight. That's what he remembered was the sort of main part of his... And sure enough, every now and then, some of the women and even some of the men in the audience began to faint. And the ambulance people took them and put them on their stretchers and put them in the back. And as Alistair Cooke said, and there he was in front of me. He brushed me. Hitler, I could have killed him. and that's typical of Alistair Cooke. He just had that kind of life. He was in the hotel when Bobby Kennedy got shot and killed. He just was one of those observers. You know how in literature there are people like Nick in The Great Gatsby, people who watch, people who are... You kind of secretly love those characters. They're not the hero. They don't propel the story. They merely watch the story. And Alistair Cooke watched it. And sometimes a good chronicler is better than the greatest actor alive. And he was that sort of a man.
Sorry, this is slightly from the point, but do you feel your very great level of fame precludes you from watching quite so calmly?
I suppose to some extent it does. All I would say is that it's easier for me to watch than for people of the 1930s to watch, because there are windows into the world now that allow one, in the online jargon, to lurk. You can be in a place but not physically be there. People don't know you're watching. It's one of the creepiest aspects of our culture, as well as one of the most useful, I suppose. But yes, I get used to... Sometimes, if I'm abroad, I've been abroad a lot for the last year filming, and I've got used to walking down a strange city with my head up, looking into the shop windows and not walking like that. It's not that I hate... I'm not sort of
it's just
mad.
different.
It is different. it's fabulous feeling, yes, to people watch and to not to feel... I mean, I don't mind being approached. I think people are usually very extremely friendly and nice to me, and they say charming things, but it's just lovely just to be one of the crowd. Yeah, no question.
An aspect of America which I'm slightly puzzled by, because much as Obama's election was wonderful and spectacular, there were 47% of those electors who didn't vote for him, which seems an incredibly high number to those of us over here who are watching what looked like an absolutely unstoppable procession towards the presidency. How do you feel as a gay man about the way in which some of the freedoms that were fought for and celebrated over the last 40 years were rolled back with the complicity of large parts of the American public?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I mean, I don't know that I feel different as a gay man than I would have felt if I were not gay, or that if I can try and don the clothes of a straight man, were ugly as they would be, of course. It's very difficult. I mean, specifically... I think it is shocking. I mean, when I did the TV series that took me around all 50 states, I kept my eye open for exactly that. I thought, I said, well, we got through Maine. Maine is wonderful. Everybody was friendly and charming. I mean, I don't go up to them and, hi, I'm Stephen Fry, I'm gay and I don't believe in God. I mean, I don't say that to them. I don't see why I should. It's ridiculous. But should it arise, I suppose I would say what I felt. I mean, if they asked me what I felt about capital punishment, I would say. If they asked me what I felt about this or that, I would try and be honest. I'd try and be polite. There's no reason not to be. But I never found that American, that slavering, red-necked American that scared the living daylights out of me, who believed in guns and who believed in, suppressing these freedoms or those freedoms. And I know that there are... I think what one has to understand, in a sense, it's just good strategy. Understand your enemy. They're not what you want them to be. Americans are not as stupid as we'd like them to be. I remember, that's to say, in matters like that, it's like, anyone who's ever worked in Hollywood will say, American producers are not dumb. We want them to be dumb. As British people who've read lots of books, the fact that they haven't read lots of books and they only care about money makes us think they're stupid. They are not stupid. They are so not stupid. They are so unbelievably smart. And any Briton who goes into a meeting thinking, I've read every book you've never heard of, and I'm smarter than you, is going to be destroyed. He's going to be destroyed and he will look contemptible, and rightly so. Americans are not an unsophisticated people any more than we are a sophisticated people. And it's the wrong way to look at it. And similarly, the idea that somebody who lives in the heartland, as they would say, who lives in Kansas on a farm and voted for McLean, is therefore beneath our notice, is a very foolish thing for us to think. That mostly these are good people. They really are. They do good work, whatever one wants to say about it. They care about people, and if they were to meet someone of opposite opinion, they would try to be charitable towards them. Where they are religious, in a religion that I don't personally hold to, they mostly follow their religion with honor. Mostly. Of course, we love to put on in our newspapers and online the absolutely insane ones, the tele-evangelists, the God hates faggots, the really mad ones. But if we think that is representative of the American people, then that's why we are surprised. But when we go there and meet them and find they aren't there, where are these Americans who are supposed to be so hateful? It's not how America is. But there is an alternative point of view. And there is an alternative point of view to the metropolitan, sophisticated, as